Commission meetings, we ask that you silence or turn off all cell phones. Meetings are televised every day on Channel 2 at 7 p.m. and also at midnight. This time we'll have a Pledge of Allegiance followed by a silent meditation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Old business, consideration of previous meeting minutes from February the 12th, 2019, regular meeting. At this time, I entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt the February 12th, 2019 regular meeting.
I'll second.
Motion has been seconded. Begin voting with Commissioner Parsinger.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried 5-0. Next item on the agenda. Second consideration ordinance 8096 to vacate a portion of Meadow Lane. This requires a roll call. Begin voting with Commissioner Bowder.
Do you want comments?
Oh,
Just briefly, Mr. Mayor and Commission, there are no changes since the first consideration ordinance reading. As a quick reminder, this is the city vacating a small portion of city property just north of the new addition to Richard Warden Middle School. No changes. We do have a representative from the school district here if you have any questions, as well as our Public Works Director.
question, comments?
Good.
Unless anything, if nothing's changed since we last discussed this, I don't have any questions unless something's changed. Okay.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Motion carried 5-0. New business. This is open for any citizens who would like to come up to the podium, discuss any items that is not on the agenda. Anybody? Speak now, forever hold your peace. All right. Moving along, general items. Consider Veterans Day Parade Committee funding requests.
Mr. Mayor and Commission, 2019 will mark the 100th anniversary of the Veterans Day Parade in Leavenworth. The Veterans Day Parade Committee has targeted this event for a few years and has plans to enhance the parade in many ways. In service of the larger scope of this parade, the committee submitted for a tourism grant. As you'll remember, a couple years ago, the City Commission created a tourism grant fund from our transient guest tax to help local tourist attractions and museums and such do things like billboards or pamphlets or brochures that would bring people to the community. The committee submitted for a tourism grant request to the CVB. However, the grant's highly competitive and likely the total amount awarded each time is $5,000. So normally we have much smaller amounts that go out to the groups. In meeting with representatives from the parade committee, we discussed that it would be appropriate to request from the City Commission a one-time donation and grant outside of the Tourism Grant Fund for the sort of extraordinary occasion of the 100th anniversary of the parade. The Parade Committee has submitted a letter attached in their request indicating some of the items that the funds would be used for, partnering with area businesses and organizations, advertising throughout 6 regional state area, memorabilia or t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, other items with the 100th anniversary logo, and potentially some other costs that would be involved in expanding the one-day event to maybe a weekend event or a 2, 3, 4-day event. And looking at this request and looking at what they originally requested, which is the $5,000, I think that would be an appropriate amount for the City Commission, should you see fit, to award them outside of the Tourism Grant Fund, $5,000 donation from the city toward the parade. And we do have members of the Parade Committee here. We've already met with them once, and I know they're in the midst of planning. So I don't know if they want to say anything, but that's all staff has to report.
Oh, what fund would that come from?
It would come from the Transient Guest Tax Fund.
Okay.
Questions?
I'd like to hear from Ms. Diane.
Yes. Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Well, what I'm about to read to you is just a couple things. The Leavenworth Times first received word of Allies and Central Powers signing the armistice at 4 a.m. November 11th, 1918. Then all of a sudden, a bedlam of whistles, bells, and shots ruined all the sleep of Leavenworth, and the wildest celebration in the city ever has known was underway. Leavenworth Mayor John C. Sykes declared a holiday as soon as he received word of the armistice, and by noon, every business house in the city was closed and all employees were parading in the streets, shouting, blowing horns, screaming, throwing confetti, and otherwise giving vent to the emotion brought on by the word of world peace. Leavenworth went wild, following the flash of glorious peace news and victory to Allied arms that arrived early yesterday morning. Crowds of screaming, noise-making, confetti-throwing, gloriously happy people representing all ages from small children to gray-haired men and aged women thronged the downtown streets from early in the morning until midnight. Never before in the history of the town had such a celebration been held, for everyone was thinking of a son, brother, or other relative over there whose task was finished and soon will be starting back. And the last is, on Tuesday, November 11th, 1919, headlines in the Times read, "Business will be suspended in the city today, all to join in the Welcome Home celebration." And that was the start of the nation's oldest Veterans Day observance, the Leavenworth County Veterans Day Parade. So who I have with me, I'm sorry. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Diana Smith, and I'm the secretary for the Leavenworth County Veterans Day Parade Committee. I also have here Charlie Shoemaker, who is the executive chairman. I have Jim Fricky, who is the vice chairman and the vice executive chairman, and Ed Gunnels, who is the 2019 parade chairman. Now, if any of you got anything you want to ask us, I'll let you go.
Well, I have no prepared speech, but if you've lived in Leavenworth very long, you've went to at least one Veterans Day parade, there's no doubt in my mind. I've been on the committee since 1966. This is my 53rd year. I was on it in the parade 3 years before that because I went to Leavenworth High School and I was in ROTC for 3 years and I marched in the parade and I graduated. There is somebody sitting up there that's older than me, I know for a fact. And I graduated in 64 and I went to Vietnam in 65. And one of the first committees they put me on was the Veterans Day Parade Committee. I don't know why, but they said, well, we need somebody young. And here I am 53 years later, and everybody I got onto it with is out in the cemetery now. As you well know, Tonganoxie, Bates, or Lansing, everybody, it's a county parade, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger every year. Now, if the weather holds, which last year was not a good day for parades, the parade usually lasts 2 hours and 15 minutes average. Now, this year being the 100th, and if the weather is right, I expect probably one of the biggest that we're going to have. The city can help us out a lot with Main Street and the county and making this as big as everybody wants it to be. The parade committee is going to be really busy putting the parade together. And to me, it could be a 2-day deal. It all depends upon how the city wants to tackle it. The merchants downtown want to tackle it. If they want to have tents or whatever, we're making an allowance. Most of the time, we have no advertisement in the Veterans Day Parade Committee. Never. We just don't think it's right, so we've never done it. This year, we're going to make allowances because it is the 100th. So if somebody wants to have a barbecue tent or something like that, then we'll look at them as they come and sign off on them. But as you well know, this could be one of the biggest that we ever had. And we're definitely going to need everybody's help with it. So I don't know how many, I know that Diane there's 5 states? 6 states, and we sent with the regional deal out of those 6 states, I don't remember all of them. We've asked for every governor. Now, most likely not, we're not going to get all 6 governors because somewhere in their state they're going to have parades and they're not going to want to come to this one even though it's the 100. But they could send somebody to represent them. And as far as the flyover goes, we have been approved by the Department of Defense for a flyover this year. And I think we're probably gonna get it from Whiteman, I'm not sure of that. Diane, you've been working on that more than I have. If anybody from the city would like to ask us questions, we can tell you, but we're gonna need Main Street, all the merchants, and everybody else to get on board if they want this to be big, you know. We bring 15,000 people, roughly. If the weather's good, there's 15,000 people to show up. Now, what they do with them while they're here, whether it's the day before, and that's gonna happen with some people because they have too far to travel, so they're coming in a day before. They'll come in, and now we got new hotels, and so that gives us a little better shot that they don't have to drive someplace else, like Platte City or
Right.
down there to get it, because now we've got some space for them to come in. And like I said, I hope it's the biggest that we ever had, but
Have you started planning a little bit earlier this year because of the 100th anniversary?
yes, we have.
Okay.
Yeah, we have, and we've already had a executive committee meeting, and like I said, as you well know, there's a lot of fraternal moving parts and organizations in this, and working with the city, and also, as you know, that when we block off the streets, the way we do it, coming down 4th Street, the state's got to sign off on it because that's a state highway and rerouting traffic. So we used to be able to do it originally in 30 minutes. Now it takes an hour or something to line it up, and then the parade lasts 2 hours and 15 minutes. So, but they're here. Even with the weather this last year, you couldn't believe it. It was snowing, but they were there. They were flying in the streets. Not as many as we have, but they were still there.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I know it's gonna be a great event. The only thing we can all hope and pray for is good weather. Because,
Yeah, absolutely.
Last year was a little bit challenging, but,
oh yeah.
But the people still came out?
oh, I know. We-
Anybody got any questions?
Yes, I'm curious, if you were to do it for 2 days, have you guys worked on how that would work out?
Well, we would like to work with Main Street and some of the merchants, you know. If there's nothing here, then there's nothing to draw them here but being in the parade. And if the weather's right, and they want to put up something like you have here in Leavenworth for the Buffalo Bill Cody Days, what I used to call it, where they have tents all over, and that might draw in other people. And as you well know, like I said, if we can do that, you got to have something to draw them here. Otherwise,
There might be an event the night before or something, yeah.
Yeah.
Some sort of event,
Right,
yeah.
they're here.
To bring them in early, yeah.
They're gonna eat someplace, that's a fact.
Yeah.
You know, and they're gonna have to stay someplace if they're coming in, so, if this works and everybody does come, because also a lot of our hotel space is military, so, you know, there's only so many slots in each one of these deals, so could get kinda, tight with too many people without having to go someplace else again. But it's an opportunity, it's the 100th anniversary, so.
Could I ask something? There are 70-plus names on the Doughboy statue outside the county courthouse of men from Leavenworth County who gave their lives during World War I, and maybe there can be some part of the parade where, you know, we pay special attention to the sacrifice they made.
Right, and we did last year, whether you know that or not, we had a ceremony up at the county court.
Well, I went to that ceremony.
Right, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
And
So-
it wasn't a very big crowd,
Right.
maybe it wasn't, but we did that.
Right.
And I think that would probably be fitting, you know, with the
But
one.
that is part of the planning.
Okay.
That's in the plan.
Right.
Okay, good.
You know, and I don't, could I ask this question because a couple of the names on the wall inside the courthouse, there is a plaque in there for the first ones that got killed in Vietnam.
Yes, that's correct.
And
Yep.
I haven't seen it for a long time.
Sure.
I know, I went to school with a couple of them.
Sure.
But we can't mention everybody.
No, I
name
understand
was in there, but you're right with those names on that one.
No, it's just that it's the 100-year, you know, anniversary in
Right.
terms of the parade. of their sacrifice. So it's just a suggestion. It's not just a suggestion. So.
Right, I agree with
Yeah.
you though. I mean, I think that that was pretty much the start of it.
Right.
And there was before that, but it's not, wasn't official. It was right after the Civil War when Fort Leavenworth still had pony soldiers and the streets down Delaware Street were wood and the streets were dirt. And they had a parade then celebrating the end of the Civil War. You know, but
Yeah.
it was a one-time deal and that was it. But once the Veterans Day Parade Committee got started, it's just been going, and some bigger cities, and I can use examples if you want. Kansas City, Kansas does not have one.
Yeah.
And Wyandotte, even though they're bigger than us, in Johnson County, they just have a little speech at their park. And so everybody comes up here, and Atchison tried to have one a couple of years ago, but they thought they could have it at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and everybody would leave here and go up there to there. So
Nope.
it didn't work. It got to be bigger and it got to be longer.
Sure.
Now, with this year, with the 100th, I'm hoping that we can get Channel 5, Channel 4, 41, because for years we did. And the last couple of years, it was even St. Joe, and I think it was Iowa, there was some TV station used to come down here. But this being that, as much as we can advertise it, not just us, but the city and the county and everybody else, then I think the more we're gonna draw, you know, so I don't know.
I think it's great. And
Well,
the Convention and
I guess what
Visitors
I'm
Bureau will
saying
be
is-
helping to advertise that too.
Right, and maybe our mayor, or your mayor, I live in Lansing now, but I was born and raised here, but our mayor invite the Johnson County mayor, that's what you want to call it, the joint deal in Wyandotte County for Kansas City, Kansas, because they don't have something like that. We do, and it's like Washington High School and Mary Manson, they're all down there, but they come to our parade because they don't have one.
Right.
So, have you?
My grandmother was 18 years old in 1918, and she probably was downtown with her brothers and sisters during the celebration. So it's kind of interesting to hear that article that Miss Diana read.
And originally, if you've been around here, the parade used to come down Broadway. I was on that parade. It was down Broadway and then went down and then it came back Cherokee and disbanded at Broadway. And that was before you had a parade route,
Yeah.
everything else. It was big, and I think this one's gonna be big. Well, I've said enough.
Thank you, sir.
I got a couple things real quick, sir. Right outside this door is a plaque for all those that gave their lives in World War II. You can take a picture of that one, and there's probably in there. I know that in the ROTC building in the high school, all those who gave their lives in, I think, World War I and World War II. I don't think they have from Vietnam. But an interesting trivia note, Diane, I know that you read the note from Mayor Seitz. His two sons, it could have been his grandsons, but I think it was his two sons, either their sons or grandsons, Richard Seitz and John Seitz, both Leavenworth boys, born and bred, became generals in the U.S. Army, Lieutenant General Richard Seitz and Brigadier General John Seitz. They're both from Leavenworth, grew up here, and the Brigadier General Seitz, I think, was fairly prominent in World War II. Lieutenant General Seitz more in Korea in the 50s and the early 60s. I remember meeting them one time, and I don't know where I was, and he said, "Where are you from?" He said, "Well, I grew up there." So, and we started talking about that, Lieutenant General Seitz.
And believe this, because you mentioned the general, Post 56 down here, and I'm the Inspector General right now for the VFW, but at one time, Post 56 in Leavenworth had more generals that belonged to that post, because every year when the new general comes, somebody would go up there and sign them up.
Yeah.
And so, all the way back to Harold K. that I remember, because
Harold K. Johnson, yeah.
right, because I went to school with his son Bob and his daughter Mary Kay. And
Wow.
Dave, General Bono, I mean, we've had so many generals, and I don't know later when they retire whether they belong or not, but Post 56 at one time had more generals in it
Sure.
than any other place in the world, really.
Thank
you, sir.
Thank you. Well, I'm supportive of the grant award of $5,000.
From our-
Oh, is
yeah,
there somebody
from
else who's gonna speak? or-
You gonna speak?
Okay.
Charlie, worry about speaking the worst.
The only thing I'm gonna add to it is that we have invited our Leavenworth celebrities that are from here,
Oh, good.
and there's quite a few of them.
Huh, good,
So,
good, good.
Been extended the invitation, won't know if they're gonna show up or not.
Wayne Sim, you gotta come on down. Come on down.
Absolutely.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we grant the Veterans Day Parade Committee a one-time funding request of $5,000.
Second.
Motion has been seconded. Begin voting with Commissioner Preisinger.
Aye.
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 Motion carried 5-0. Next item on the agenda, consider cereal malt beverages license for CVS.
Our city clerk, Carla Williamson, will handle this item.
This item is a request for a cereal malt beverage license for the CVS located at 390 Lemon Street here in town. It would be an off-premise license, this would just require an approval by the city commission.
Just out of curiosity, why did they have a change of ownership or something?
I don't think
They've never sold
they've
beer.
never sold it before,
Oh, they
so
haven't?
they've, yeah, it's just,
So
I
they
guess
can
a
start
change in their
selling.
business
I
model that
question.
they decided to start selling.
So that means Walgreens will start selling it too.
Yeah, right.
That's correct. No other questions, comments, I entertain a motion.
I'll motion to approve the 2019 off-premise cereal malt beverage license for CVS Pharmacy, number 5268 LLC, 390 Lemon Street, Leavenworth, Kansas.
Second.
Motion has been seconded. Begin voting with Commissioner Bowder.
Aye.
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 Motion carried 5-0. Next item on the agenda, resolutions. Resolution B 2215, annual report for stormwater.
The next two items will be handled by our Public Works Director, Mike McDonald.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, this is a follow-up from our meeting and study session last week where we discussed the annual report we submit to KDHE related to stormwater. We have completed our report. It's no longer a draft report, and it is posted on a link on our department page on the web page. The substantive parts of the executive summary and final report that we reviewed with the commission have some minor changes to incorporate concerns that were identified at the meeting. There are no substantive changes past that in any of the work that we've done. It is 387 pages long. If we can print that out for you, let me know. But we would ask that you find the report to be satisfactory and adopt resolution B2115, and we will submit this to KDHE probably tomorrow.
Questions, comments?
No.
No, we had a good discussion about it.
Yeah.
Last week?
Yeah.
Last week, right? It was a good discussion.
This time I entertain a motion.
I move that we approve Resolution B 2215, the annual report for stormwater.
Second.
Motion has been seconded. Begin voting with Commissioner Preisinger.
Aye.
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 Motion carried 5-0. Resolution B 2216, stormwater management plan.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, this is a similar and related item. This is a request to adopt a resolution to affirm that the stormwater management program that was adopted in 2016 continues to be the guiding document for staff on stormwater-related activities. This document is included in the annual report that we previously referenced, and I would request that the City Commission adopt the resolution B2116.
I have a question that I got from a constituent, and they have flood insurance, which I believe they have to get through the government. And they're talking back and forth with the representatives who were talking to them about flood insurance. They said they had to look into a plan, and the plan was like from 25, 30, or 35 years ago, which obviously is a long time ago. Would this plan be something that, that the government should be looking at with respect to, because it'll affect their premiums, you know, et cetera. So I just wondered, do you have any insight on that?
Yes, sir. The short answer, the federal management, or Federal Emergency Management Agency floodplain program has had nothing to do with this other than in passing.
Okay.
That is a standalone insurance-based program. The maps were digitally updated, about 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so there were a flurry of minor changes on those. They are somewhat easier to look at online. You don't have to come into our office and we get the little map out. The digital updates helped a lot of people and cost a fair amount of people additional dollars for flood insurance. Traditionally, elected officials are concerned, about water quantity, which is flooding. The federal regulatory agencies tend to be concerned about water quality.
Right.
And that's what
Okay.
these programs are related to.
Okay.
And if they have specific questions about their property, our office, engineering office, is the floodplain agency for the city.
Thank you.
No other questions or comments? I entertain a motion.
I move that we approve Resolution B 2216, the Stormwater Management Plan.
I'll second it.
Motion has been seconded. Begin voting with Commissioner Ballard.
Aye.
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 Motion carried, 5-0. Next item on the agenda, Resolution B 2217, Thornton Street bonds.
Mr. Mayor and Commission, the issue before you tonight is a resolution to the expression of the governing body's official intent to issue bonds to finance improvements to Thornton Street in an estimated maximum amount of $5,650,800. What this is the first step in the bond issuance for the ongoing Thornton Street project, which is under design now and is expected to go out to bid here in the next couple months. The Commission originally discussed this item, entered into a design contract with Affinis, and then Affinis has come to the point where they're getting ready to provide bid documents that we could go out. So this would be the funding mechanism to pay for the construction section of Thornton Street. So that's what this is on face value. I want to turn the Commission's attention to one thing on the resolution. If you look at the resolution, about halfway down on the first whereas clause, it determined and established Thornton Street from the west line of 4th Street to the east line of 10th Avenue as the area that's allowed to be used for this. And then there's a second sentence in there that says east line of 10th Avenue and 10th Avenue from the south side of Spruce Street to the north right-of-way of Eisenhower Roads is included in this resolution. So I want to provide a little clarification for anybody who's reading this resolution. In examining the Thornton Road project with Affinis, they came in with a construction estimate of roughly $3.9 million, which is obviously below the amount that you're seeing here tonight. All this resolution is doing is setting the maximum amount of our bond issuance. In discussions with the Commission, it has been clearly established over the last couple of years that a high priority, if not the #1 priority on the city also, is 10th Street. We've seen continued deterioration between specifically Vilas and Michigan Street on 10th Street. What including 10th Avenue does in here is just open the possibility that that extra funds, that bond authority, could be used on a 10th Street project. Now let me give you an idea of the timeline that we would follow. This has not come to a study session. We've talked about it in road commission study sessions. So if the commission moved this forward tonight, it would not obligate the commission to do anything on 10th Street. It does not move anything on 10th Street. It simply gives the commission the flexibility with this bond issuance to fix what's a highly visible and highly flawed stretch of street along 10th Street. So what we would do is we would bring this to a study session in the very near future. We would talk about 10th Street. We would talk about the next step. We would go out to bid for a design. I believe that 10th Street is different than 20th and that a lot of the curbs, a lot of the stormwater, I should say different than Thornton. The stormwater systems are in good shape. They could use some tweaks, but this is primarily a road deck project. And so we would go out for a bid for a design and get some better ideas of what the project would cost. Again, this was just an opportunity to potentially move Thornton, or 10th Street, this stretch that we've talked about, into a one-year construction phase rather than doing it piecemeal over multiple years as we had to do 20th Street. So again, it obligates the city commission to nothing, and the plan would be to bring this back to a study session in the near future. The reason we had to include it tonight is we have to get the financing rolling on Thornton Street to be able to start construction this year. If any questions that you have, I know this is a little bit unorthodox, but this provided the opportunity for us to bring relief to this street in a much quicker and condensed time period than we could have had we done it on a multi-year process.
That's good.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I mean, so, and I like, obviously, the flexibility that you proposed is something that, yeah, I'm very supportive of it, so. That's one commissioner's view, but.
So should our motion include 10th Street or just Thornton on here?
Your motion is just to approve the resolution as presented.
As presented,
Yeah.
got it, okay.
Yep, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we
Go ahead.
approve the resolution B 2217 as presented.
Second.
Motion has been seconded, begin voting with Commissioner Preisinger.
Aye.
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 Motion carried 5-0. Next item on the agenda, bids, contracts, and agreements. Consider bids for a Parks and Recreation Department truck.
So it will be handled by Brian Bailey, who's our Parks Superintendent.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. The Parks Department is requesting approval for 2019 Ford Super Duty F-350 XL 4x4 with nap-high dump bed, manufactured and furnished to our specifications, utilizing the cooperative purchasing program authorized by the city's purchasing policy. In 2005, the department bought a F-250 4x4. This truck served our department very well. We used the truck to haul trailers, mowers, material, and equipment. Without this truck, it would limit our productivity. After reviewing purchasing options, the department has selected the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Program. This program is used throughout the region for the purchase of transportation equipment. This program allows the purchase of equipment that meets our needs through the manufacturer with proven record of customer service throughout the Kansas region. It ensures that we receive the best possible price while we guarantee standard governmental purchasing practices that are followed. Staff developed specifications for the truck to replace truck 342. The new truck will be equipped with the ability to perform maintenance needs required by the department. The truck on the Sourcewell cooperative bid meets the requirements for the 2019 Ford Super Duty F-350 XL 4x4 with a nap-high bed and an amount of $50,202. Staff recommends the purchase of one 2019 Ford Super Duty F-350 XL 4x4 with a nap-high bed and an amount of $50,202 from National Auto Fleet Group, quote ID number 8333R16. The budget impact for this truck, there is $53,000 allowance in the CIP for 2019 for our equipment for parts. Do you have any questions?
Is the 205 going on auction?
Yes, it will.
Okay.
So the 53,000 allocated it's for this purpose?
Correct.
It's not the whole, okay, got it, make sure. Good, under budget.
Yes, very good.
But it is interesting that the dealership is out in California, or, I mean, I know it's through the Sourcewell program, but the dealership we're working with is this National Auto Fleet Group,
Correct.
and they're, well,
Their headquarters.
it's kind of interesting that they're a Chevrolet and that we're getting a Ford, but that doesn't make any difference, but I just wanted to get that clarified. It's not, we couldn't get this through a local vendor, correct? Or, I mean,
I'll take that. Sure. So when we go to purchase a piece of equipment, and the most common things we've purchased recently, such as our large park mowers or these large park trucks, you really have two options. And we discussed this when we talked about the purchasing policy a couple of years back. You can put out a bid, and you could send it to local dealerships or regional. The problem we were having was response. We would often sometimes not get any, or we'd get one and it would be over. The wave of government purchasing at the state level, regionally, and nationally has been these vetted cooperative purchasing organizations. Is how we bought our fire trucks from the Houston Galveston Cooperative Purchasing Organization. I guess the drawback is you are probably not going to buy from a local dealership. The positives are you get it faster, you get it exactly to your specs, you get it for a lower price, you maximize the cooperative bidding organization. So I guess there's a give and take to both. So on this one, we elected to use the Sourcewell cooperative purchasing option.
Thank you.
I think they did very good on the price considering what they bought.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? I entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the purchase of the 2019 Ford Super Duty F-350 XL with the Napa dump body in the amount of $50,202 from Sourcewell as presented.
Second.
Motion has been seconded. Again, voting with Commissioner Preisinger.
Aye.
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 Motion carried, 5-0.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Next item on the agenda, consider bid for Municipal Service Center fuel canopy revision.
We have our Public Works Director and Deputy Public Works Director on this item.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, this is related to the canopy for the fuel island at the Municipal Service Center. This is a rebid of a project that was advertised a few weeks back that was found to be way substantially over our funds. And we had an interesting meeting with the engineer, an architect who happened to be up on another project, and a couple of the vendors, the bidders on the project, is what can we do to reduce the cost of this project. And I think we made some significant changes because the bids came in much closer to our expectations this time. We do have Baker Construction was the low bid, slightly over the engineer's estimate, but I believe it's within the funds available for the project. And they've indicated that they can begin work on this fairly quickly. And their part as the general contractor is going to be the 4 piers and ordering the steel. We've asked them to not order the structural steel until we get the absolutely correct dimensions for the way the piers are constructed, so that there's no mistakes in the fabrication and it comes in too long or too short, because this is not a typical, what you see at a gas station. You got 4 posts and they're in a perfect square. Ours are 2 lines that are not parallel just by the circumstances of where underground electric and fuel lines are. So it's important that we do that. That will be a delay between the construction of the piers and then the arrival of the canopy. But we believe we have a good project and recommend award of this contract to Baker Construction.
Where is Baker Construction from?
Leavenworth.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I recognize the name. I just didn't know whether it was the same corporation. So good.
Any other questions or comments? No. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that we accept the low bid received from Baker Construction in the amount of $68,000 for the Leavenworth Service Center Fuel Island Canopy Project.
Second.
Motion has been seconded. Begin voting with Commissioner Goddard.
Aye.
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 Motion carried.
Mr. McDonald, Mr. Hooper, when will it be started or completed? Do you have any idea?
I think they're going to wait for the weather to dry out a bit. They get paid a fairly good chunk of money for building the piers. They believe they can do that fairly expeditiously, and that is what they have to do to order the rest of the project to be delivered.
So how long, once it starts, if weather good, how long a project is it?
It's 45 days, but we can't count the delay between ordering and arrival of the steel. So I would say within 30 days they ought to be starting, and I figure they got about
Once
2
they're on
weeks.
site working,
2
Do
weeks.
you have to work around them, or do you have?
We'll be able to get you the
still
fuel
get
mileage. Yes, sir.
Your.
Yeah, there may be parts of the day when we can't, but we believe we can get to at least one side of the fuel pumps throughout the course of the project.
And the night, police officers can get it at
Yes.
2 o'clock in the morning if they need to. Okay, thank you.
Next item on the agenda. Motion?
Yeah.
Consider bids for City Hall HVAC upgrade and repair project.
Mr. McDonald, continue on this.
Thank you. In the far depths of the basement is the heating system for the building. There are 2 boilers. There's a kind of a picture of some of the piping that exists down there. This boiler room is, interestingly enough, for a boiler room, it's a humid environment, and that is, humidity is generally caused in the summer when the warm, moist air comes down the fresh air vents and condenses into cool air in the basement and creates moisture, which gets absorbed by the insulation around the pipes. Some of this insulation was repaired when we did the building project 15 years ago. The rest of it, and much of it, was not. This project will replace all of the damaged insulation, as well as install dampers on the fresh air system. The fresh air is only needed when the boilers are operating to support the combustion. So that the intent is to avoid the moisture entering the building in the first place, which should relieve a lot of stress on the air conditioning system in the basement to start with.
The Augustino's KCK, aren't they?
Yes, sir.
That group that's done a lot of work for us in the past.
Yes.
It's been 15 years since the renovation of City Hall. Do we anticipate, I mean, that specifically, but in general, I mean, 15 years is kind of a long time. Do we anticipate more, maybe upgrades that'll need to be made to the
There's a
infrastructure?
whole series of things that need to be
Old
attended to.
building.
That we will
Sure.
be working with the city manager to bring that kind of to you. Interesting to note that in 1924, this building was dedicated. That is 100 years coming up pretty quick. So our goal was to try to make sure that we have the building in good shape. I'm sure there'll be some sort of a celebration or a cake and cookies or something.
And we've had a full, Mike can elaborate on this a little bit. We've had a full interior and exterior plan just recently completed on City Hall that's going to identify the maintenance items over the next 5 to 10 years. So we had somebody come in and assess everything. So, and the commission last year authorized for the first time an ongoing annual allocation for City Hall maintenance. So we'll bring the plan to you, and you've already seen fit to allocate the funding source.
That's good. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept the bid from the Agostino Mechanical Contractors in the amount of $34,850 for the project as presented.
I'll second it.
Motion has been seconded. Begin voting with Commissioner Ballard.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carried, 5-0. Next item on the agenda, consider amendment number 1 to design contract with Water Resources Solutions, LLC, 16 Terrace and Thornton Phase 2 Stormwater Project.
Mr. Mayor and Commission, I'll turn this over to Mr. McDonald in a second. This is a change order, but it was a change order we talked about when the detention basin part of this project was awarded, that there would be a Phase 2 to this project. So this is Phase 2. Water Resource Solutions did the design for Phase 1 and a lot of the work that's already done for Phase 2. So we just extended that contract to cover all the work for Phase 2. So Mike, I don't know what I didn't cover, but if you want to go over what Phase 2 is and where we are.
Thank you, sir. The Phase 1 project that we are currently constructing is the detention basin portion, and there is a swale and a pipe replacement upgrade project that is all of Phase 1. The Phase 2 project that's being currently designed replaces the line that goes south from the yellow dot down to the end of the existing pipe, and I think one more lot perhaps.
One more lot.
And that would be the replacement project that we originally contracted for Phase 2. It was, after looking at some of our original concepts from a few years ago, there's about another 1,000 feet of drainage channel down there that needs attention, but it also needs to be thought through with the design of what we're doing. So Water Resources has proposed that we extend the design to include design of all of the creek and stream improvements that would be necessary down to Viola Street. We're don't know what level we're going to construct, but I would expect certainly we would construct the initial portion of this, and perhaps in a future year with the stormwater funding, we can look at extending it. But their recommendation is that you need to study the whole thing and make sure that what you're building now is the most cost-effective portion of it. So this is a change order related to essentially extending the design of the project another 1,000 feet to the south. There's some pictures in here too that are of what the creek channels look like. They did not look like that when the houses were built. They've been eroded downward. They exposed some power lines. They undermined trees. It's slowly becoming more of a ditch than a creek. And in fact, I think some people would argue it's really a ditch right now. So these are just some typical pictures that we would expect to address in a more stable environment, perhaps similar to what we've done out on 22nd Street between Violet and Lemon. But the change order is to extend the design so we can have an integrated approach to solving the problem.
That's good. That's good. We need this on this.
Yeah, I'd be glad to see this one.
Go back
Me
to
too.
the map, would you? Right there. Yeah, directly to the east of it, I think I know you can't go east of it, but as you go down that map, there's another creek waterway there that's problematic too. Will this relieve some of the pressure off that one? You know which one I'm talking about?
This is fairly
I know this is not associated with it, but because we're doing this, will that relieve some of the pressure? Because that one's has eroded quite a bit over the years.
Well,
too.
and actually about 4 years ago, we did the 16th and Holman project, which is south of Vilas here.
Yeah.
Where this water runs into. There were at least two, maybe three 90-degree turns in the piping on that system. We took those 90-degree turns out and made it a straight shot into the creek area, and we restabilized the creek bank, lined the existing piping that was there, and again installed new piping and in-section on that. So in the long run, yes, it should affect how this drainage runs through there. We think it will alleviate some of the backup that occurred at Viola Street. Since that project was done, we haven't had a big rain in order to test that system, but we're fairly confident it's going to work as it was designed. And
Good.
Okay.
There are multiple locations with similar problem.
Okay.
But this is, we've done work, we're working at the upstream end of this one now. We worked at the downstream end a few years ago.
Good. Thank you.
There's no other questions or comments, I entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve amendment number 1 to the sole source design contract submitted by Water Resources Solutions LLC for the 16th Terrace and Thornton Phase 2 Stormwater Project in an amount not to exceed $15,000 for a total contract of $54,190.
Second.
Motion has been seconded. Begin voting with Commissioner Preisinger.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried, 5-0. Next item on the agenda, first consideration ordinance amending the 2016 development regulations.
City Planner Julie Hurley will handle this.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, this is the ordinance updating the 2016 development regulations. The Planning Commission did go through the public hearing process on these changes back in February of this year. And the City Commission did review all of these proposed changes at a recent study session, so I won't go over all of them again. But if you have any questions, I can answer those. So this ordinance just incorporates all of the changes that we previously discussed into the development regulations. So again, if you have any questions, I can answer those for you.
Questions, comments?
The only question I have was it's on page 52 of the read ahead, and it involves solar energy, and it's just, I see where it's in red, and we're talking about in that paragraph, a principal structure or 600 square feet, whichever is greater. Further up, under subparagraph A, it talks about 500 square feet. You see where I'm talking about?
Over
Julie?
600.
Page 52. Under solar energy.
Yes.
So I'm just looking at 500 versus 600, but maybe the 500's correct in terms of how it's being used, but I just was wondering. I remember the 600, that's the paragraph that's been changed with the additional red sentence, but.
Yeah, I think.
Because that's on the 500.
Yeah, we actually took out the requirement for a special use permit.
Right.
Yeah,
So we need to take that, maybe.
Yeah,
take that
so the
paragraph off.
the red line copy here may just
Yeah.
be a little bit incorrect. What we'd done,
Right.
previously you were required to have a special
Yeah.
use permit for any collection system over 500 square feet, which sort of did conflict with that 600 square feet for an array. And an array is a solar
Sure.
collection system on the ground. And so we did remove that requirement for the special use permit for anything over 500 square feet. So I think this red line copy may just be a little bit incorrect, but that was what we had done there on that.
Can you, right, so that.
Yeah, we'll make sure,
okay.
we'll make sure when that comes
All right.
for second consideration that it's reflected correctly on what we had discussed.
Okay.
Do we have consensus to move this forward?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Next item on the agenda, Commissioner Bowder, consent agenda.
Okay, after review of the claims, I move to approve the claims for February 9, 2019 through February 22, 2019, in the amount of $773,931.74. Net amount for payroll number 4, effective February 15, 2019, in the amount of $328,614.71. And that includes police and fire pension in the amount of $11,572.36.
Second.
Motion has been seconded, begin voting with Commissioner Preisinger.
Aye.
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 Motion carried, 5-0. At this time, do we have any discussion amongst the commissioners? Commissioner Bowder?
I don't have anything tonight.
Nothing?
No, I just hope it's not icy.
Didn't bring much cake.
Commissioner Dedeky?
No, I have nothing.
Commissioner Preisinger?
Two quick things. One, obviously, I think we all know there's a lot of potholes in the city, but I also want to thank Public Works and especially the street department for the efforts they're making to fill these potholes. Quite frankly, they're probably going to get worse before it gets better. We've got, obviously, rain tonight. We've got more weather coming in this weekend. Temperature's going to go down to 0. The freeze thaw is going to occur, and it's bad. It's bad here. It's bad everywhere throughout the Midwest, wherever this is happening. This is just a stellar year, if you will, for potholes. So just advise everybody to be careful. If you see some, there are numbers to call Public Works, and they will get out there and fix them. And but they do reappear fairly quickly, and I'm sure Mr. Hooper or Mr. McDonald can tell us how quickly they can appear. And if you want to say anything, go ahead. I got one other thing to go ahead.
I appreciate the support, and we are working very hard to address the potholes, sir.
Okay. One other point, I guess I want to congratulate Lansing for getting, it's been announced their quick trip at 4th and Eisenhower. I'm sure that they'll be working with us and the state on potential traffic issues there, because there will be some. This quick trip does a very good business, and that's a tough intersection to start out with, and it's going to make it a little bit tougher. And so I'm sure the traffic planners from all the organizations will be together on how to handle that and where the setbacks are going to be, et cetera. And just so everyone knows, that little corner there where the co-op is and where Aldi's little cutout there up to about that driveway, if you go up Eisenhower that goes into the back way in Home Depot, is actually in Lansing, not in Leavenworth. So
So that's the vicinity of where that Quick Trip is gonna be?
At the co-op, or the co-op. Co-op's getting bulldozed.
That northwest corner?
Yeah, yeah.
They're moving, but they are relocating.
They're going out into Lansing, the
Okay.
area in Lansing, out in their industrial park off Gilman.
Yeah.
And, but the traffic at that intersection is already, with TSC, everything going on there. It's busy, but I'm sure the traffic engineers will figure it out. So that's all I have.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Commissioner Griswold?
Yes, just following up in the spirit of the presentation we had today from the Veterans Parade Committee and talking about distinguished citizens within the city of Leavenworth, I was able to attend yesterday in Kansas City, the inaugural presentation of the Medal of Honor winner, Colonel Roger H.C. Donlin Patriot Award to the honored guest, Gary Sinise. And this was hosted by the Greater Kansas City Chapter of the Association of the United States Army. It was well attended and a very, very nice ceremony. And I just wanted to point out that obviously Colonel Retired Donlin is one of our distinguished citizens.
Absolutely.
I'm sure
That's good.
he'll be there for the Veterans Day Parade too. So.
Mr. Paul?
Just two things. First of all, unless you want to mention it, Mr. Mayor, this Saturday
Yeah.
at 9 a.m. at the Leavenworth Public Library will be the first coffee with the mayor and manager. It's designed for residents to come out to a casual setting and ask us questions, give us tips or suggestions on what we could be doing better. So we'll have coffee and some donuts. We plan to stay from 9 to 10:30, but I'm sure if there's people there, we'll stay a little bit longer. So that'll be Saturday morning, 9 a.m. At the Leavenworth Public Library. And then the only other note is we will not have a study session next week.
So please come out for coffee and donuts. Just want to warn everyone to be careful as you step out. It is getting slick. I was informed with rain turning to when the rain is freezing. Yes. And also be in memory of a special day tomorrow, my birthday.
Yay, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Turn a big 32. I'm getting old.
I can't remember when I was little.
Yeah.
I know it.
But if there's nothing else, I'll motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.